On Noosa FM, that was Michael Buining from his album Redemption, a tune called Ride the Night. And all the way from Sydney, you've got Michael in the studio with me right now. Welcome, Michael Buining.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. This beautiful Noosa weather.
Tell us a little about yourself.
I'm Sydney born and bred, and I guess the short version of the story is how I came to get into music in a way.
Yeah.
Was, well, I kind of got, I didn't get into the school band. I was deemed not good enough.
Then I was the scratch.
Then I was.
I thought they'd have anybody in the school band.
Then I only got into the school choir because the auditions, me and my mate, we were so bad. The teacher thought we were taking the mickey out of her. And she said she was furious. She thought we'd made fun of the auditions, and she said, "Well, I'm putting you in the choir just to spite you." And then my mum tried to get me on recorder and piano. It didn't really gel. Then I learnt violin at school, played it for 6 years, and I was absolutely terrible.
Yeah, that's a struggle.
Difficult instrument. How my parents put up with that, I don't know.
I have two daughters. One did clarinet, the other did violin, and that was some trying times.
My parents share your pain. And but the violin, that actually got me into, funnily enough, like a bush band.
Oh, okay.
And playing like Little Brown Jug and those kind of things.
So you're actually able to call it a fiddle then.
That's right, playing a fiddle. And through that, a mate said, well, during one of the breaks, he said, "I'll try my guitar," and I picked up the guitar and I thought, oh, now that is an easy instrument.
Yeah.
I mean, easier than violin, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
So I was hooked, and that, I guess that was when I was 18, 17 or something like that.
Right.
So, 35 years ago, something like that. And then I really had quite a break from music because I, working in the finance industry like for 20 years offshore in South Korea and in the States, and then came back around 2010 and realised the thing that I really loved was music. And I'd never really written songs before, and I'd never really sung much before then either, ever since the scarring of the school choir back in the 5th grade. And since then I've pumped out, this is my 5th CD.
Okay.
And I just love it. It's I remember when I was learning violin, my teacher would always just say, "You've got to be expressive." And as a kid, you don't quite get that in music, but now I get it. If you're not expressive in music, it's like it doesn't go anywhere. And for me, that's always the I guess the challenge, the thing to aspire to, is to write songs and play music that does evoke feelings in some way, even if it's just a tapping of a foot, something basic, but something that does evoke feelings. That's really what I love doing.
Well, we certainly got that feel in that first song, Ride the Night, that we played. Tell us a little about it.
I guess the whole album is quite autobiographical in a way, and tells the story of this period in my life where there was a lot of change going on. And that goes back to like when I was probably 6 years old, and some kid in the playground said, you know what, I can read palms. I said, really? As you would. To another 6-year-old. It's funny the things you remember.
Yeah.
And he looked at my hand, right? And he said, "Oh, the good news, you've got a long lifeline. You're going to live for a long time." I said, "Well, that's good." And he said, "Oh, but it's actually got a really big break in the middle." And I guess the last, probably 7-8 years, a lot of things have changed in my life. I finished up work. I came back, split up with my wife. Went away from the church, so a lot of big anchors in my life that had been there for kind of 20, 30, 40 years just really changed very quickly. And so a lot of the songs in this album tell that story. And so that particular song, Ride the Night, it's about that idea of luck in your life. You kind of think a lot of things happen to you because of your good planning or your bad planning, your good talent, your lack of talent, but luck plays like an enormous part, and I guess for me, part of that change was really rolling the dice and giving things a go, and I guess that's where where I've come to in my music, just giving that a bit of a shot.
Well, the album's called Redemption. I picked up your music from the Australian Music Radio Airplay Project, AMRAP charts as we call them, something I do every Sunday, and you got a couple of calls in from our listeners, and that sort of prompts me to keep in touch with those that I've played music of, and through Facebook we connected that way.
Yeah.
And now you're sitting in the studio. I tell you, the marvels of...
the marvels of technology.
Yeah, and I guess in the old days it was about, stalking the record companies with a bundle of vinyl under your arm and trying to get a run on a commercial radio station. Public radio wasn't as strong as it is now. But how important was it for you to have access to over 400 community radio stations, and how many have picked up on it?
Yeah, there's probably been like maybe 40 or so that have kind of picked up the music, and there's been a few that have just played one or two songs. A few that I've had ongoing conversations with. There's a guy down in Victoria, Seymour FM. He had me on for a chat as well, and Southern Blues Beat Radio, which is an online like a streaming station, and they're featuring the album this week.
Great.
But I think one of the special ones is a station. It's called Tuma Pulka FM, TJUMAPULK. Forgive my pronunciation, which is an Indigenous station, and they picked up some of my songs and played it. And it's always nice having your music recognised and played, but this was something for me was really very special. I felt very privileged to be on their station, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's sort of like the Indigenous people. They have such a beautiful voice. They have a voice that struggles to be heard in so many ways. Some people just won't listen to it. They have a beautiful culture, songs, story, dance, wonderful, beautiful, creative culture. And for them to pick up one of my songs and just put that inside their culture, that was very humbling. I don't know if that quite captures it, but it was a really special thing just to say, these people who've got such a beautiful history and a beautiful voice saw fit just to play one of my songs on their station. For me to play a little part in that was just beautiful. To
show that gratitude that you have is really commendable. And over 300 Indigenous radio stations across the country. I've visited quite a few around Queensland. Yeah. And they certainly love their music. I play a lot of First Nations music, and that is quite unique, and pay our respects. Mate, we've got another song to play. What would you like me to play off this latest album, Redemption?
Let's play one called Love on Fire.
Yeah.
This is
track 5.
Yeah, this is a bluesy song that I actually wrote when I was up in at a cabin, quite a remote cabin with my partner, Karen, and sitting around the fire and just wrote this. So it's a bit of a, staring in the fire, watching the coal. So it's a bit of a love song. And when we came to record it, it was, we kind of mucked around with a style of blues, something a bit faster, different grooves, different, beats. And this one ended up being just really stripped back and very minimalist. And it's partly inspired by Morton Feldman, who wrote some very minimalist and abstract music, most famously for the Rothko Chapel, which is in Texas. Yeah. And that's the kind of music where you hear like one note every 7 or 8 seconds. Wow. Very, very sparse. And so in this, there's a piano part in it, and the guy who played the piano, it's a fantastic pianist, Bo Golden. I was talking to him about it. I said, look, some of these things, I want you to play it how I would play it, being such a terrible piano player. I said, this part, just use one finger. This part, maybe 2 fingers. At the end, maybe 3 fingers at most. And so what he did with the piano in this, I love it, because it's just like someone stumbling around a room late at night. Well, here it is now on Noosa FM, Michael Buining and Love on Fire. 21 past 11, 101.3.
Step a little closer, you'll get burned tonight. with desire. Treat her right, you'll get burned tonight. Baby, burn with me tonight. Live on fire. I can't go back, 'cause I've been burned for life. Can't go back now, 'cause I've been burned for life.
Michael Buining on Noosa FM, and a tune called Love on Fire. Mike, it's a very unusual little tune, that one. I was imagining I might have been in the movie theatre, perhaps, waiting for the show to start. There's a real cinematic flavour about that tune to me.
Yeah. And I've actually, there's a guy in Sydney who did some videos for me for these tracks. And I got a call from him a couple of weeks ago. He's a Brazilian movie maker, actually. Like, he's out here doing various things. And he said, "Oh man, I listened to your album," because he obviously listened to a few tracks when we were doing just the video clips. And he said, "You know, we just need to do a movie on this." And I go, "Dude, you're speaking my language," because I've got a notebook like an inch thick that maps out all these songs. Because as I said, they really do tell a story, and for me, it's the whole album. It's a concept album in the vein of, there's things like, you know, everything from, you know, Rocky Horror to Hedwig and the Angry Inch. These musical projects that form like a whole narrative. And one thing that I've had on the boiler to do for this is to make a short film out of it. So we've had like a couple of chats with him, and hopefully we'll get back to him. I think it'll be about an 18-month project. You know, it's not going to be trivial, but hopefully we'll get there.
I'll look at all the best of you on that. I mean, it certainly did conjure up pictures in that tune. You described the preacher,
well, the whole album, it's kind of, the phrase I use to describe it is the man, the woman, the preacher, and the way out of town. And all the songs have got those characters in them in various forms. And this one really is the story of the man and that love on fire, that I've been bitten, I've been burned, I've been set alight, I can't go back now, I've been burned for life. And it's that sense of he's really found something that has changed him, and he can't go back. You can't pretend that isn't there.
A lot of people ask singer-songwriters what comes first, the music or the words.
Yeah.
But for me, I think you've probably described the fact that it's coming from life experiences, and therefore perhaps the words come first and then the music later?
Yeah, very much. Yeah. It's kind of funny. I think the earlier songs I wrote, because I wasn't a singer, like when I was younger, they were very much driven by, you know, like various rhythms or grooves on the guitar. And I very much came from finding something musical and then trying to squeeze the words into it. And the last album was a bit more like that, whereas this one, I really wanted to have something where the songs were coherent and they told a story. And so with that, most of the songs, they really did start with sort of the lyrics, normally like a one or two catchphrases, or for want of a better term, but then having that and then trying to imagine what is the whole picture. And so for all these songs, there really is a visual backstory to them. I guess in a way, like that vision that I've got in my head when I close my eyes and I can see what is going on in the story, in the song, and then the lyrics come out of that.
Yeah.
And with some of them, as I said, like when I was recording it, really did experiment a lot with the music that went underneath them.
It's been great talking with you and reviewing several of these tracks, and certainly a fine album. What advice you got for others who might want to emulate what you're doing, singer-songwriter with 3 or 4 albums out? What would you say to them?
Well, I think I'd say, be creative, be expressive, be original, play with feeling and write your songs with feeling. There's got to be something in there that you feel some kind of passion or some connection with about what you sing. There's room for a whole lot of songs, for want of a better term, throwaway songs, like a good little party song. But for me, songwriting, it's an expressive art, and so that's what I'd say. Do that. One thing that I would also say that I'm still, I guess, working through myself is finding that sound, because there's so much good music written around. It's phenomenal, and you'd see it through AMRAP and other things. There's so much good music around. One of the things that really sets, I think, music apart is finding that distinct sound to it. Very hard thing to do. I'm still working through that, which register does my voice work best in, how to sing things, just the style of music. And I think that's just something that's going to merge over time.
And the immediate future, where can folks catch you performing? I guess plenty of places down south, but
it's mainly in and around Sydney.
Yep.
Like I play in a few bands. Most of them are private events, corporates, weddings, things like that. But there's a few venues that we play around the northern suburbs of Sydney. But if you go to the Roadhouse Regulars website or my own website, michaelbuining.com.au, then there's lists of gigs and things like that. We play about like 30 or 40 times a year, which isn't a great deal as far as musicians go, but for me, that's the capacity. And for me, the next stop is continuing promoting the album around the radio networks around Australia. And then I've got another album in the pipeline as well, which I'll probably like middle of next year I'll hit the studio with.
Well, you better keep us up to date with all of that new work coming out, and might go out with the final track from your latest album, Redemption. Which one will we choose?
Let It Flow.
Michael Buining, it's been great having you in the studios. You come back and play a few tunes, maybe at one of our big festivals. We've got some great entertainment venues across this show, and of course outdoor festivals. Gympie Muster only held 40 minutes away.
Yeah, not far away. Right?
I could see you there. You do well, I reckon. Yeah. That's Michael Buining on Noosa FM, and we'll go out with a track from his album with the Roadhouse Regulars. It's called Let It Flow. Have a great trip home, Mike, and tell them all about it.
Will do. Thanks very much, Mike.
Waiting by the corner of a schoolyard, watching you drive away, waving goodbye. I wipe my tears away. Walking home that lonely mile, trying to find my way. Those schoolboys, they called me up. I had to wipe my tears away. So let it rock, let it roll, let it flow. And may your sweet memories be your goal. Let them ebb, let them flow, soothe your soul when you're old. The good times you've had will never go. Just let it flow. Mama, you never did tell me. Daddy, you never did say let it roll, let it flow. And may your sweet memories be your goal. Let them ebb, let them flow, soothe your soul when you're old. The good times you've had will never go, just let it flow.
On Noosa FM, that's the music of Michael Buining and Let It Flow from his album Redemption.